Coming up, how long winters have spawned many an Alaska passion project. And while this Kenai barber loves to cut hair, his true passion lies elsewhere.
46, 47, and my 48th mandolin.
Did you need stamps while you were here today?
No.
And in Juneau, a combination post office and gift shop full of passion projects.
I think post offices at its core are about connecting people.
Also ahead, a carver's quest for truth.
Some kind of justice will prevail.
Alaskans and their passion projects, why Alaska wouldn't be the same without them.
Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief that the best is yet to come, bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to our program. Frontiers has almost hit the 5-year mark here on KTVA, and by far one of the things I've enjoyed the most about this show, the chance to meet Alaskans and find out about their passion projects. They're often incubated during our long, dark winters and come in many shapes and sizes, sometimes from people you'd least expect, like Dave Colson, a barber in Kenai. If mountains could talk, they would tell us to dream big.
Outside the snow is glistening, so I wrote my name while I was whistling.
Sit around this barbershop for a while,
Eyebrows a little bit.
Yes, sir.
and you might think Dave Colson has a passion for his work.
Some people have a knack for it.
He does, but it's not his deepest desire.
If it did turn into a job and a commitment and a responsibility, that passion that I have for it wouldn't be the same. You know, it'd just be another job. I do it because I love to do it.
But he can't do it until the shop closes, and he's got quite a few customers to get to.
All right, sir, 1/4 inch on the beard.
It's easy to see Dave loves his job.
When it's 12 below, you get to be indoors. That's pretty handy.
And he loves his customers.
Seems like such a simple thing, but something about getting a fresh haircut puts spring in your step. Just makes you feel better.
Cutting hair is a family tradition.
All right, let me bring this up just a little bit on this side.
His dad was a military barber in Texas, content to earn 30 cents a haircut, until a soldier told him what they paid in Alaska.
My dad heard that. He said, I'm going to go to Alaska and make some of that big money. 70 cents a haircut, it was unheard of in Texas.
Dave worked in his dad's shop as a shoeshine boy.
I have a 10th grade education. You know, who wants to hear what I got to say?
But as he trims, he talks.
Talk about religion or politics. Ask him for trouble.
And as he talks, he trims.
There's coffee down here, guys, if you like some.
Coffee to go with conversation about critters, how to catch them, and of course, talk about life itself.
And it's strange, I've been here 15 years and I watch these kids grow up. Now they're bringing their own children in.
At times, it almost seems like a Norman Rockwell painting in
Is
here,
your son getting a haircut today?
with a modern twist.
Come on, big boy.
But before you know it, 15 years goes by,
Hold still.
and big boys become men.
Big smile, must be all right.
He's one of the few that I trust with my beard.
Almost 3 o'clock, coming into the home stretch.
The time has finally come for us
Oh-de-do-da-day.
to find out what Dave's passion project is.
Oh-de-do-da-do. That's the work zone over there. This is the play zone. And when you got these long winters, this is the perfect little thing to do on the side. I just love the smell of it all. Love the sound of it all.
As he works, Dave says he imagines a cabin in the woods, an old guy at work on a mandolin.
You hear the wood stove clicking over there in the corner and smell the fuel oil and the kerosene lamps. And I bet you could come up with a violin or a mandolin by the end of winter.
Over the years, Dave has made a few violins, more mandolins, made mostly out of Alaskan materials.
Birch from the Matanuska Valley.
The birch, Dave says, is kind of like European maple, durable enough for the back of the instrument as for the top.
Beetle killed, windblown spruce tree.
So, how many instruments has Dave made over the years? 25 guitars, 12 violins.
Like this is the 46 mandolin. There's a lot of work needs to be done to this one.
Dave usually works on several mandolins at once.
46, 47, and my 48th mandolin, which I'm just now soon to be closing. I don't know if you can get it close up, but it's vine and leaf with a bear claw. You know, people will appreciate that hand-tooled stuff.
Dave says he builds his mandolins to last.
200 years from now, I hope some of them are still here with my name, my craftsmanship in them.
That includes elaborate mother-of-pearl inlay, and on the head of the mando,
907. I mean, you know, we don't get more Alaskan than that.
but it's what you don't see that matters most to Dave.
So I started experimenting, and this is one of my Frankenstein experiments.
Which he's perfected. A carbon graphite bracing system that will preserve his carefully carved curves.
If Stradivarius had carbon graphite available, he'd have used it.
Soon, Dave will begin work on his 49th mandolin.
So I'm gonna do gold nugget inlay.
But Dave's mandolins are not for sale.
This mandolin here is one that I built many, many years ago. There's been a lot of Alaskan musicians play this.
You can see the evolution. The early ones have the brand name Duke on them.
Mom entered me in a baby contest. They had the king, the queen, the prince, princess, and the duke and the duchess, and I was the Duke of Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas.
And he fought under the name Dave the Duke when he became the state boxing champ. But today, Dave's mandolins just say Colson. I guess everybody would be curious to know how you learned to do this.
Nobody taught me a single thing. I've had to walk through many a nightmare I created for myself. It's okay to try and fail. You know, that Alaskan poem that Larry Beck used to do called The Alaskan. It's no disgrace or loss of face for those who try and lose, but say a prayer for the unaware who could conquer but refuse.
The key is when you make a mistake to keep going and
Sail right through it, fix it the best you can.
Dave says that's what the masters learn to do, to fix their mistakes. But the important thing, they finished their work.
I know hundreds of men who have hundreds of projects and none of them are nearing completion. Find one thing, see it to the end.
So now you have Dave's formula for passion projects. As for playing the mandolin,
It's never been a passion of mine, but building them is a very deep, developed through time.
time that continues to play out. Another piece of advice from Dave, start simple, so it's not overwhelming. Maybe start out with a kit. That's what he's done with his son, Tyler, who has built 2 mandolins so far. In fact, Dave got his start from a banjo kit. Up next.
I know the word budget doesn't sound sexy, but it's actually one of the most romantic things a leader makes.
Poetry and politics, a Juneau woman's passion project. Christy Nami Erickson is hard to sum up. A single mom, a businesswoman, a postmistress, and a poet, and a fighter for social justice. Her canvas is the community of Juneau, where she paints stories with words and invites others to be a part of her many passion projects.
Anything liquid, fragile, perishable?
In the heart of downtown Juneau, you'll find a post office
This is automatically insured for $50.
and so much more.
Did you need stamps while you were here today? No. All right.
Christy Nami Erickson owns Kindred Post, a combination post office and gift shop.
I think post offices at its core are about connecting people. And I wanted to be able to have a space that, yes, still connected people, but did it in new, creative, engaging ways for our community.
For Christy, art is the glue.
I believe art brings people together. It wakes us up, it invites us in, it engages us.
On a daily basis, this shop connects tourists to local artists.
A favorite artist I have right now is Michaela Goad.
Christy carries Goad's line of Alaska Native children's books with Tlingit stories about Raven.
The Tide Lady is just beautiful. I think because I want to be the Tide Lady when I grow up.
Just as the Tide Lady made it possible for humanity to share bounty from the sea, Kindred Post aims to be a place where the community can feed its soul.
When I opened Kindred Post, it was part of my immediate intention to collect beautiful things.
Some of those things come from Christy's own life.
I've been collecting things that my son says for the last 6 years.
With a little help from Mom's talents as a graphics artist,
Kisses are kind of magic.
her son's words have a power of their own.
When you're a young kid and your mom kisses your owie, it is magical, right? It heals it.
And Mom, by the way, is a poet.
I like to play with words, whether it's in the written form or in the visual form.
But you won't find much of her work here.
I'm actually kind of shy about selling my work here sometimes because I'm trying to make room for a lot of different artists.
And sometimes she does that in a big way.
So we move things to the sides and into the back, and then we have a whole bunch of chairs that we bring down. And I don't know if you can imagine this, but we actually have tiny post office concerts here.
Baby, there's a shark in the water. There's something underneath my bed.
For Christy, art is active, not passive, always to be shared in ways that are as creative as the art itself.
I know the word budget doesn't sound sexy, but it's actually one of the most romantic things a leader makes.
Christy used her poem, Love Letter to Alaska, to say budgets are more than about numbers.
A budget is used by those with big desires. It communicates ideals, values, limits. It separates our wants from our needs.
Christy's poem was written and performed in answer to Governor Mike Dunleavy's first round of budget cuts, one of the biggest in state history.
When he preserves and increases tax credits for the oil industry, he says to us, we need them.
Christy's love letter struck a chord heard round the state after it went viral on social media.
But when he suggests there is not enough and he cuts senior benefits and he raises fees, he says to our elders, we want you, but we don't need you. When he cuts Medicaid and low-income dental care, he says to our poor and to our sick, we don't need you.
I don't think I really choose these topics. I feel like the topics choose me.
And for Christy, politics and poetry are a potent combination.
When I use the word political, I mean has power.
And for Christy, poetry is a tool to fight for a better world.
When your brown son tells you over dinner he thinks he's ugly.
She features her own son in a poem called Bird.
A mother with a leaking heart. Rising tides on my breath when I say you are so beautiful, nothing can sink you.
Although the poem never uses the word racism, it speaks to the pain it causes. In Bird, Christy connects her son's hurts to her own vulnerabilities as a child, and she responds to hate with love and joy.
You, the color of a good luck penny. You, the color of harvest. You, the color of a plot twist, the color of anthems, you, the color of flight. An array of sun in the new world that won't want to shine on your face.
I think all artists have a huge role in social justice movements and activism, and I think as leaders in their communities.
It is the artist's perspective, their vision, Christy says, that can make a difference.
I think one thing artists often do is they look at things from a place of abundance, right?
As they look out on the community, they see possibilities and potential, and maybe something else.
More in touch with, what I would even say is a sixth sense, right? A deeper feeling.
And perhaps a deeper truth.
Part of the romance of Alaska is each other. Here we pull each other out of the ice. We push each other out of the snow. We feed each other. We teach each other. We heal each other. Here we meet each other. Yiguayakwan. Have courage.
Christy Nami Erickson is a two-time Rasmussen Foundation Award winner and works with local artists like Ryan Cortez Perez, a film producer and owner of Gemini Waltz Media. Avery Stewart is the guitarist you hear on many of Christy's poetry readings. You can find more of her work on her website, tsunami.com, which is spelled to include her Korean name, Nami. Coming up, some passions are lifelong. Put a carving knife in Joe Sanunkatuk's hands and he'll tell you a story. Joe Sanunkatuk turns 80 this year, and you can find him at his studio at Alaska Pacific University, where he still paints, carves, and is as feisty and opinionated as ever. Artists are like fountains. When their passion flows out, sometimes it inspires.
If you could listen to a hot knife cutting through warm butter, it'd be the same thing as if you were using a sharp knife in soft wood.
Sometimes art makes you work to understand what it says. And if you do, Joe Sanunkatuk feels like he's done his job. The curious thing about Joe's work, each piece is different, but they all speak with one voice.
It makes a statement. It's not a beautiful statement.
This King Island-style mask is called the Wonder Bread effect because its colors are like those on the Wonder Bread wrapper. And what is the Wonder Bread effect?
It's obesity.
Joe says Wonder Bread is popular in village stores.
Very fattening and very cheap.
Many of Joe's pieces are commentary on the influence of Western culture.
What would people understand about time and space and my people?
And what it means to lose a way of life.
Accidentally, I bought a bar stool. It had a red leatherette cover on it, like a lot of bar stools.
This mask is about Joe's own struggle with alcohol and that of his people. When Joe took apart the bar stool, he saw how the seat made a perfect frame for the mask, then added the springs he found in the upholstery.
It looked imprisoned.
Joe says this piece is a statement about the disproportionate numbers of Alaska natives behind bars. Your face is smiling, though we can't see it.
I think of this piece as being a mirror image of our people. It's hard to see the face because we tend to be faceless.
Almost every piece here tries to put a face on the problem. This one has, well, two faces, a large native mask with a tiny white one suspended above.
I'm not saying the white man is little, but he is what he is.
The size of the masks speak to the long history of tribes in Alaska versus the newcomers.
Its title is, "And the White Man Came and He Hung Around, ... and he hung around." It's been centuries now. He hasn't let us live in our own space ever since then. Not the Russians, not the colonialists in Alaska now.
Many of Joe's prized pieces aren't for sale. He says it's hard to part with his art.
I truly treasure my work.
Perhaps because his work tells his life story. A story that begins in the tiny village of Wales. A time when teachers, missionaries, and gold prospectors brought change. Change from forces beyond native control.
The essence of Raven comes through everyone.
Joe Sanunkatuk's wife, Martha, is the daughter of the late John Hoover, another famous carver.
We're prepared to do a lot of different workshops.
Together, they serve as artists in residence at Alaska Pacific University. In this gathering, they talk about art as therapy for historical trauma.
It's very healing to come up with some ideas, do the research, and then come up with some designs that reflect who you are.
We went to school to learn English.
For Joe, it's been a lifelong search for identity that began as a boy in a schoolhouse where his native language was forbidden.
If a school teacher just raised up a finger, we understood that. There was no Inupiaq language to speak.
He was confused the first time a teacher gave him a paper with blue lines.
Margins were my spaces for drawing.
Joe eventually went on to college, and after a stint in the Army, studied art in San Francisco.
I'm carrying my air about me as a young man.
But as an Alaskan far from home, he worried about the politics he left behind. The drawings that surround his self-portrait were inspired by his hero, Howard Rock, an Inupiat who founded a newspaper to fight for Native causes.
My own work surprises me in that I did it so well.
Joe collaborated on this painting with his wife, Martha, which comes from a story he heard from his parents about the 1918 flu epidemic that left his mother an orphan.
She was actually suckling on a either dead or dying mother who was buried soon after she was born.
The woman in this painting adopted his mother and later died from tuberculosis. Joe says he and his sister saw her spirit when they were small and at first didn't realize she was a ghost. Throughout his life, Joe has been haunted by a past he can only imagine, a time when people took pride in their ability to survive.
The raincoat is made out of walrus stomach membrane.
Joe remembers wearing rain gear like this as a child.
Raindrops are heavy.
They sounded like the beat of a drum when they pounded against his gut parka.
I'm just kind of like a lone soul in my universe that happens to do a lot of thinking.
About how the past is never really past, that it lives on into the present and finds its way into the future.
But my work will endure for a couple more lifetimes, at least.
Joe Sanungatuk has also written his life story in a book called Give or Take a Couple of Centuries. Well, now it's time to say goodbye. This is my last program, and I must say Frontiers has been a passion project of mine. In fact, it's been a passion project for many of us here at KTVA. Will Mader, our main Frontiers photojournalist, and Kevin Fowler, our director who oversees the graphics, and a very dedicated studio crew. A big thanks to KTVA and GCI, the owner of our company, for believing in the concept of Frontiers. But most important of all, we'd like to thank you for being a part of our Frontiers journey. And we'd like to say, as we often do on this show, may you find your own frontiers. We leave you now with music played on a mandolin made by Dave Colson, because we wanted you to hear what one of Dave's passion projects sounds like in the hands of Harrison Jennings, an Alaskan musician known to channel the angels. Enjoy.